Hey everybody, welcome to Creative Conversations with David and Donna. I'm David.
I'm Donna.
And I'm Dean.
Today, we're not just Creative Conversations with David and Donna, we're with David, Donna, and Dean,
Yep.
which is really nice and convenient to have a guest with the same first letter in his
Triple
name.
D.
Triple D instruction.
Here he goes with the Dean puns. We're 25 seconds in and you're already spitting out the Dean puns.
It's not my fault. My name is one of the most pwnable names in existence.
That's true.
Ironically, it is true. God, I'm not fair.
So this is Dean Diaz. He's a good friend of mine. He is also a former student of Donna's, just like me.
For 3 years.
For
though.
3 years.
So I'll tell that story. I feel like I may not have a whole lot to say on this one, but Dean was in my sophomore class as a speech student, and that was the year of the flood in this area. So we haven't talked too much about that. But during that year, our whole school had to be relocated to another school. So Dean was with me in that horrible time that we had to endure, but it was a good class. We enjoyed our class. And we also we started a creative writing club, and Dean was one of the first members in it, and so was David. So that's kind of cool.
That's right. I always forget that the roots were creative writing club with me, you, and a couple others starting it all. I always forget until I get reminded, like, oh yeah, we did that. And that was a really cool year. We wrote a lot of cool stuff that's probably like on pieces of paper randomly thrown in our backpacks that we'll never find again.
I can't believe I lost my favorite tree story.
Your favorite tree?
That was one to remember. But you need to recreate that.
I could. I guess.
So the point is,
I remember all the important parts.
Since me and Dean's earliest time we can remember in high school, really, Donna was there trying to create an environment
so you could stay
creative. Yes, and that's what we all did. And then
well, I want to finish
continue.
myself.
Yeah,
yes.
I was about to say.
Okay, so in the speech class, we read a play, and listening to Dean read, I said, I don't do the theater club anymore. I called it drama club, but I said, if I still had my drama club, I would beg you to be in it. I said those words. And so the next year, I was offered the theater class, and I'm like, hey, you need to take theater. And so he did, and he took it with me for 2 years. So I got to teach Dean all three. And the very important thing to add here about Dean being in my class for all 3 years is that he's an amazing artist, a very effortless drawer. He can just pick up a dry erase marker and make scenes on my whiteboard. So for as long as he's been my student, he had all of these. Every week or so, he would update his mural on my whiteboard, and all of my other students just looked forward to it. So it's kind of sad this year that he does still come and update it occasionally, but I haven't had a student to come and take up that mantle yet. That was Dean's thing, even though we tried to pass it on.
Who can replace?
Well, we did try.
Dean?
We taught a few people how to draw it, but it's just not the same.
No, it's not.
But I do at this moment have a Stranger Dean's, there's another pun, Stranger Dean's mural on my board advertising our haunted house, and I just can't bear to erase it even though the haunted house is over, so he's going to have to come visit and do another one for us.
Hey, if you stay after school on Tuesdays or Thursdays, I can absolutely make it.
Okay.
Because, I get out of class at 1:30 around, and that's my last class for the day.
Okay.
Well,
we're planning to work in the prop room Tuesday after school if you want to come draw on the board and work in the prop room.
Well, bada bing.
All right.
That transitions right into sort of what I was going to say next, which is why is he here? Donna loves all of her former students, but you can't just pick a random one from her law class and they really be relevant here. No offense, but so it's like, why is Dean here? Well, Dean is in college now at Louisiana State University, very prestigious, very Dean-ish. I tried.
It's okay.
And what is your official major there?
I am a film and television major and a music minor.
Wow. So he's doing. Before the show started, I watched a video of him performing already. You're a freshman in college. You've been there for 2-3 months, and you were performing on stage. That's really incredible to me.
Is.
I mean, I didn't do that, and in my first 3, well, I also wasn't in that exact same field, but still, that's really impressive that you were able to do that, and it was amazing. It's because of how talented you are that you're already able to shoot to that level. I would assume that most aren't able to get there that early.
Thank you very much. And you would be completely correct in that assumption. As a matter of fact, not only did I land a solo piece in my first ever performance at LSU, recently, the other day, in fact, I was involved in my first film for LSU.
Wow.
The Delta Rouge Film Club is hosting a thing that is called Horribly Short. That's a pun, too.
Yeah. Oh, really? I didn't notice.
Yeah. Basically, all the guys in the club that want to do it just get together, group off, and make Halloween-themed films. And then on Halloween night, we all get together and watch all of them. And then we watch a really terrible one after. This year's Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yes. I love terrible horror movies. I've spoken about it before. Horror movies are just this canvas that do the weirdest, strangest thing you can possibly think of. So I love that. But anyway, so that's why you're on the show, because you're already doing these amazing things, and obviously you have a career ahead of you. So whenever you're rich and famous, you can say your first official podcast interview was the Creative Conversations podcast with David and Donna.
We'll never forget this.
We want to talk about and ask you about like what you're doing there, what your plans are, advice for people, for students considering doing such a thing. And
I feel like y'all need to talk about your background.
Dean? What do you mean?
Yeah,
Oh,
like,
me and him as friends together?
Yeah,
Well, we will. Because we are good friends. And
and before us, there was you. There was your podcast.
That's right. We're gonna talk about that. And
what were you gonna say?
Sorry, I just forgot to follow up on why I was talking about Horribly Short.
Okay.
I was the lead in my first ever actual film, which was filmed the other day.
Oh, you were the lead in
Friday.
the film.
What was the part?
The ghost of a frat boy.
Oh.
Now, my values are basically the opposite of a frat boy's values, so it was a little bit difficult to be one.
Well, it's acting.
It is acting.
You were acting?
It is acting. It was very... If you told me I was going to strip down to my undies and have a bunch of girls dress me up in a toga, I would not have believed you. Mm-hmm. But it happened that day.
That was on film? Or
not the stripping down.
I was wondering.
But I was in a toga.
Shame.
Okay.
Shame. I would have cried that night. But it's okay. I don't know. Life has changed me.
Mm-hmm.
As you can tell, Dean's going through some very
odd
changes in his life. It's a couple months ago in high school, and now you're getting a toga put on you by backstage girls to girls are cool, man.
I'm ashamed of my body, so it was hard, but I did it for the film.
No, you're a lovely. What is this podcast turning into?
Let us move to what we're talking about.
So, this podcast is sort of accidentally turning into a little bit what me and Dean's old podcast
I
used
was
to be.
about to say, so let's talk about that. Good transition, David. Good
so
transition. All right.
Me and Dean met in Creative Writing Club and then went to theater together. He was in theater for 2 years. I was there for one of his 2 years. He's a grade behind me. And we became very close, and especially in theater, became very good friends and did a lot together. In the last play that we all contributed to, High School, Another Day, Another Test, me and Dean actually got to act on stage together for a lot of that play. Probably like half of that play we were on stage together. And there were a lot of times where we were supposed to be quiet because we're like, we don't have a line, but then Dean is like doing goofy stuff and making me laugh, and I'm like, please shut up. Like, we're in rehearsal and I'm like, you cannot do that on stage, because it'll ruin the entire play, because me and everyone around him would just burst out laughing.
Mm-hmm. And you were trying to be the tough
And I'm trying to be this tough bully. Yeah. And like, we're sitting at our desk and Dean's back here just being Dean.
Being Dean.
And so after my senior year of high school ended, I really just wanted to do a podcast. And I asked Dean to be a co-host with me on that show. And we did we did 9 episodes total, and you were on for maybe all but 2 of them. You were there with me doing it, which was just a whole lot of fun. I'm very proud of those podcasts. I've taken them down now. I don't know if I told you. They're no longer up on my show because we started this new thing and I wanted to start fresh, really. But I am still very proud of what we did. It was called the Homeroom Radio Podcast, and that's because also over the summer I made a short film called Homeroom. And it was like this thrown together in a week. I just really want to do it thing. and I asked Dean to be a part of that also, and he played a big role in that thing. We were going to do more episodes, but we did this one episode, and it was just like, okay, this was really fun to do. We're going to do the Homeroom Radio podcast now instead. We're going to continue it that way. So we did the Homeroom Radio, and it was just us talking about whatever we wanted to talk about, having different guests that were our friends on, and just having a fun conversation. Similar to what we were doing now, but different in many ways.
Less professional.
Lot less professional, and just more two bros talking kind of thing. And we interviewed a lot of people that we did stuff with, and friends from theater, and it was a lot of fun doing that. And it was a very good show, very fun thing. Just an hour to listen and have fun and laugh. Lots of jokes. We did one skit that I'm really proud of with Michael in the bathtub. Remember that? Mm-hmm. That's really good. That is still up, I think.
It is.
That is still up on my YouTube channel, so y'all can still check that one out at David Peoples TV. That one's a lot of fun. I don't remember what it's called, but that's my favorite thing I've ever done. It's like 1 minute 30 seconds. So it was really great doing all that with you. But then I started college, you went back to high school, and it just kind of faded off, and we just never got back to doing it. And now they're all gone. But they're not deleted, by the way. They're just private. So they could always come back one day.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring them back.
There's always an opportunity for the Homeroom Radio show to resurface one day.
Right.
But definitely the saddest part was no longer meeting with you every week and having those conversations.
It was a great summer.
It really was.
Possibly my best summer ever.
Yeah. And it was your last true summer as a high school man.
It was.
Well, I'm happy that I helped you fulfill some enjoyment in that summer. You're welcome, I might say.
And thank you very much.
You're welcome. And that's what I did for you, and that's what I want to do for everybody else. That's what Donna wants to do for everybody else. Help them stay creative. Which is why you should go to davidanddonna.com, davidanddonnacreative.com, and check it out there. Get 25 tips to stay creative every single day in your life. Don't forget to click that link in the description.
That's right.
So is there any other thing you would like us to... Because you often think about, well, I want to hear about this from you, David, and I kind of just don't think about it. So anything else in your head that we need to address here before we move on to some of the topics we had to talk about today?
Yeah, we have some interesting topics I know will get David's attention. So let's see. What else do we want to say to Dean? Or Dean, would you like to say anything else?
Hail Zaplapo.
Oh, right. We should talk about Zaplapo. I think we have talked about him on the show before.
Yeah, we have talked about it, and I think that's actually a good topic because we often talk about creating characters in your own universes and settings and lore and creating things that just come out of your mind from any sort of inspiration. And so this is another reason we have Dean on the show. We want to talk about this thing that you created from a strange source of inspiration that ended up on stage in a play.
In a musical number, no less.
In a musical number, no less.
In a play that
you wrote. A play that's going to be published. So you really went from concept to curtain call.
You are correct.
You really did. You followed the Donna method and ended up there on stage performing it. So let's hear the whole story of Zaplapo.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what we want to let everyone else do.
The tale of Zaplapo is a very, very long one. Not just literally, but also metaphorically.
Ah.
See
what you did there?
That was clever. That was an accident. So, it all started at the field trip day for Creative Writing Club. We went to the library in Baton Rouge, and it was cool, but it was way too quiet. So we ditched that place, and then we went to Mr. Gaddy's, and we just had a bomb diggity time.
Mr. Gaddy's is like a mini Chuck E. Cheese and local here. It's like a pizza, buffet, and arcade place.
Right.
And that was more Creative Writing Club style because we could just scream a lot.
Yes.
And do and touch things and be like, woo! When at the library, Michael picked up some drumsticks and got yelled at for touching drumsticks.
Could you please put those down?
Yeah.
Put them down.
I think she was like, are those yours?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, just put those down. Okay, I'm sorry, man.
I forgot that too.
What a fun trip. But anyway, continue.
Right. So, just a sea of like kindergartners and stuff.
And then us high schoolers hey, get out the way, kid. I'm playing skee ball.
Michael and I had been playing at the arcade for approximately 30 minutes, and together we scrounged up about 500 tokens, I think. So, no, tickets.
You use tokens to play the game, to win the tickets, right.
So, we were just looking around for things to buy, and I saw this cool lizard, right? And I was like, hey, let's get that lizard. And he was like, yeah, sure. And then as soon as the, whatever guy, like, was about to grab it, I just kind of look off into the corner, into the darkness, and a brilliant beam of light shot straight at me. The holiest thing I had ever seen.
Metaphorical or literal?
Literal.
Okay.
Literally. And I pointed straight at that.
I think
said,
it's metaphorical.
No! We need that. We need him.
Oh, a different lizard. So the lizard that you originally was going to
The false god.
That was the false god.
The false god.
The one that you just said, like, let's get that lizard. That was
Right.
That's not Ziplopo.
Right.
Okay, I had to get clarification there. I thought you were talking about Ziplopo.
But, boom. So, we received, at that time, just a toy lizard. Just a rubber lizard. You know, whatever. A frilled rubber lizard. Correct. With a glorious frill. And I said, this is the coolest lizard ever. And then
It sure
we
is.
played with it for a while until we left. And on the bus ride back to school, everyone was like, so Dean, what's its name? I just looked down at this brilliant thing in my hands that I couldn't even describe. And I said, Ziplopo. His name is Ziplopo. And from then on, I knew this was no ordinary toy. In fact, it was the avatar of the lizard god Ziplopo. Yeah. It's no joke, my fellow listeners. It's no joke. It is literally the lizard god. So,
I don't think you know what the word literally means.
I do. And I'm using it correctly. I'm literally using it correctly.
Oh, okay.
So, my understanding from what you have told me is that on the bus ride, the whole story, or origin story, just downloaded. Like
It started flowing into me.
Yes.
The other characters in the story. The other, his father, his...
Tadola.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the whole lore.
Yeah,
Some
the
would
whole
say
lore.
the tatty daddy.
Tatty daddy. All right. So you gained the knowledge as you were holding this sacred frilled lizard toy that Ziplopo was indeed the creator of all things.
Not all things, just the first reptile, and therefore the god of reptiles.
Okay.
Okay.
You see, how the whole deity thing works is there's the origin of life, right, which gave birth to all other living things, but you know how that works or whatever. So the first reptile to ever be was Ziplopo, and he was therefore the lizard god at that point forever on. So all other reptiles that came after the very first are his children.
But
That's
he
how
has
that
a dad, though.
He has a dad because he was the first lizard, but not the first animal. So
I see what.
right,
you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah. See,
Oh.
yeah. So
Well, what is Tadola?
Tadola is an amphibian, the god of amphibians.
I see.
As an
an-
evolution.
Yes.
And
Right.
this.
Yes.
Like Neil deGrasse Tyson says, the answer to what came first, the chicken or the egg, the answer is the egg from a bird that wasn't the chicken.
Right, the proto chicken.
The proto-chicken, yes.
Right,
Got
right.
it.
And Tadola, you see, I haven't told anybody this because
Oh, exclusive.
exclusive, very exclusive. But the reason that I was so adamant about this was because I had found Tadola the same way.
And that was in your past.
Yes, years ago, when I was about 8 years old, I believe, I went to Celebration Station.
Ooh.
And I had won Tadola as a prize.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a lizard, but then, you know, a couple years passed of me drawing Tadola and thinking, he's just a cool guy I made up. I was wrong! He was a newt.
Oh.
He's modeled after a red-crested newt.
I see. I see.
So you go to these places, you win these things, you get this random source of inspiration, and then all of a sudden this all floods into you. You write down all this story you created, and then time comes when a good friend of yours, Seth, is writing a play.
Mm-hmm.
And did you approach him with the idea, or did he come to you with the idea of including the disciples of Ziplopo in a Pelican story? Or what it's now just it's being published as the Patriotic Pelican.
Correct.
So did you approach him, or did he come to you?
Truthfully, at first it was not my idea, just because I assumed that it would be more of a Pelican-only story, which is why I just assumed that I wouldn't ask.
You didn't want to go in there and
right
wave Ziplopo around and
right. That would just be inappropriate.
Yeah. Right.
But then Seth said, "That's a really good idea, guys. We're going to do that now." And I was like, awesome.
It was integral to the plot.
And
it absolutely was.
And it was a great moment. It fit perfectly. It didn't come out of place.
Almost exactly what I was afraid of happened, but in the best way.
Oh, of it becoming too important to the plot.
Right.
But you're right. You're right in the best way. So to give us a little context, Seth, who I'm sure we'll have on the show eventually.
Well, he was supposed to be here today. By the way, Seth just got back from boot camp yesterday. So we invited him, but he's tired and got other business.
And I understand fully.
So we'll have him again.
One day. And he wrote this play called, at the time, A Pelican Story. And him and Dean being friends, the character, or the deity of Ziplopo and the characters of the disciples all ended up part of the play and written into the story, to where they end up going to this church of Ziplopo, and then they sing a song explaining the origins of him, and then they become characters in the play, which then gets performed on stage after rehearsing through all of it, casting the people, making the music for it, writing the song, gets casted and then performed on stage. And now it's getting published.
So other people will be performing it.
Other people will be performing it. You went from concept to curtain call, and then publishing.
I love that.
Something you wrote's going to be published officially. So you did it. You did exactly what we're preaching and what works, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I have a few side comments about...
All started with some inspiration.
Definitely. So I would like to share that most of Dean's drawings on my board featured Ziplopo prominently.
Yes.
Usually. I would say 97% of the time. And then when we first started learning of the lore of Ziplopo, I was still teaching English, and I had seniors. And one year we had the false god. Somebody had also brought home the false god lizard, and it was banished to the back bookshelf in my classroom. And Ziplopo had his place of glory near my desk. And people didn't understand why we had all these lizards all over my classroom. So they asked me the question, and I started explaining about how Ziplopo was the true god of all things, and that we had banished the false god to the Netherlands. And they just looked at me with eyes and went, "That is so cool." I just expected them to go call for the insane asylum, let's cart this woman off, she's had too much to drink or something. But they just thought it was the greatest idea.
It's people love lore about things.
So I got
ideas.
to share the Ziplopo story with my students when they asked. I told them the real story. I didn't make something up. Oh, that's just some lizard Dean likes. I told them I really told them about Ziplopo,
I appreciate that.
So they just thought that was the coolest thing ever. You just don't know the reaction you're going to get. And I loved it. That was
Ziplopo is, in a way, your Harry Potter.
Ooh.
It is this on a bus, like a train. Come with this idea. Who knows? Maybe you can make a whole franchise later in your life when you're in movies and a big star that you're going to be. Would you do that? Do you see that a possibility in the future?
Well, if I had the resources to create a franchise for Ziplopo, I would absolutely do it immediately.
Okay.
Just be like Godzilla, but with the Ziplopo.
Now,
Godzilla versus Ziplopo.
Would you believe that was part of the inspiration for me creating the image of Tadola? Was because I was big into Godzilla, of course, and I had this toy lizard thing, and I was like, dude, this would look cool as a giant monster, and that's exactly how that started.
Yeah.
Wow.
I gotta say, I love, this actually relates back. We talked about it on our first podcast episode, how much you loved Godzilla, and I just wasn't into it, but then I saw King of the Monsters, and I was like, oh my god, I get why Dean is like, oh, it's Monsters College, but then I cannot wait for Godzilla versus King Kong.
That's gonna be so cool.
That is that's gonna be the most epic thing I've ever seen. Because I saw Skull Island, and I'm like, oh my god, they're doing world building. They're building a world in Godzilla versus King Kong is punching each other. So cool. So anyway. I digress.
You do, but I feel like it might be a good time to slide into our other topic.
It does.
Even though that is not a Marvel movie, but y'all watch movies that
I would
They're
say
comparable at this point.
that I'm just not that interested in. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But they're both heavy into the Marvel universe, and so I had shared something with David this week that he told me he had already seen. So I'll let him introduce that idea.
So, and what's funny is I'm sure. It's about Martin Scorsese. I'm sure you've all heard about it too, and I'm sure that his comments would also apply to the Godzilla movies in a way. Mm-hmm. So, could you? Because I'm gonna pull up the exact quote, and while you're doing that, I'll go through what it is. Martin Scorsese did an interview, and he spoke about the Marvel movies, and he basically, to sum it up, I'll get the exact quote in a moment. He said that Marvel movies are not cinema. And he compared them to a theme park. They're events you go to. They're these big things, but they don't. I believe in part of the quote is they don't convey human emotion. They're just these big spectacles, big flash, nothing more, and that they're not cinema. And that Martin Scorsese is a famed director and has directed some of the objectively best films of all time. I mean, Wolf of Wall Street, Taxi Driver, The Departed, Raging Bull, Gangs of New York. I could go on and on. He's an incredible director, and I love his movies. I really do. But I have to say, I mean, of course, and if y'all disagree with me, that's fine, but I disagree with Scorsese. I mean... Okay,
so here's the quote. Yeah, and I'm not sure if this is his actual quote or his when he came back to explain his actual quote, but it says, "What has to be protected is the singular experience of experiencing a picture, ideally with an audience, but there's room for so many others now in so many other ways. There's going to be crossovers completely. The value of a film that's like a theme park film, for example, the Marvel type pictures, where the theaters become amusement parks, that's a different experience. I was saying earlier, it's not cinema, it's something else, whether you go for that or not." So this is his explanation, but his comments basically were that Marvel movies are so much like theme parks that they shouldn't be invading cinema, because he doesn't see Marvel movies are not cinema. He just, in his idea, cinema is more highbrow. I guess it's not all of the constant, explosions in your face and whatever, but I mean...
And it sounds like one of his big things is that they're not part of these universes, that it's like a one picture, this is the thing, the whole thing is in this encapsulated picture, and that's it. That's cinema. My biggest issue that I got when I first my initial comments and just some background. I'm a huge Marvel fan. I've been collecting comic books my entire life. I saw Iron Man in theaters, and I've seen every movie in theaters that came out in the Marvel Cinematic Universe since then. I love them all, even the bad ones in their own way. Some of them are bad movies, but they're cool that they're like part of the universe, and some of them are great movies on their own. And I love them. I loved Endgame, and I can't wait to see where Marvel goes. I love all, and at the same time, I'm also a lover of what Scorsese would be talking about, which is film, his kind of cinema, movies like that.
Storytelling, it seems like, is what he's focused on.
Yeah,
but I feel like Marvel does a lot of storytelling.
Exactly.
I feel that where he is pulling his idea of cinema is that each movie is cultivated and crafted for itself
from scratch.
I see his side of it, because I believe he's trying to say that each film, since part of it is made to progress an overall story, sometimes a lot of the films may be seen as their own plot being secondary, which I understand that perspective completely, right? But at the same time, I think the allure of the MCU is its overarching plot, because
one big story
that makes it like even grander than any cinematic thing in history so far, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the biggest accomplishment I've always said that Endgame is the biggest movie accomplishment ever. It's the highest grossing movie of all time, and I'm sure even Martin Scorsese would say it is it is insanely impressive that they took these 20 plus movies and wrapped them all up in a pretty little bow in one big story. And that's what the whole Marvel world has been. In the comic books, DC Comics, for example, has rebooted their universe many times. Many times. They have a crisis. Every 10 years, they're like, crisis, because we don't know what to do next. And then Marvel has never, not once, reset their timeline. From the moment that their first characters of Captain America and the original Human Torch and Namor were created, it has been a straight timeline. All those things happen. They don't reset. It's one big story that is Marvel. And that's what these movies have done. And I think that that's impressive. Now, I think to be fair to Martin Scorsese, I think he's not saying it's not impressive. I think he thinks it's very impressive. But
it's just not cinema.
It's not, to him, it's not cinema. They aren't film. They aren't these great things. But and I totally, I agree with him. Movies that don't convey real human emotion or there for a purpose, I could be like, that's not cinema. I can totally get that. I disagree with him because they convey human emotions and they tell brilliant stories. Iron Man is a masterpiece. I love that movie. It's a great movie, and conveying human emotion. I mean, for the last 30 minutes of Endgame, I was bawling, the entire crying, and most people in the theater were.
But see, that is because, and I went to see Endgame having not seen any of the Marvel Universe movies except Doctor Strange, because I love Benedict Cumberbatch, but that's a different story. Anyway, so, I mean, I didn't have the emotional reaction, and so I talked to you after that. And so the reason that movie had such impact is because of the 20 years or however long, 20 movies leading up to it. So when they started making these original movies, was this always the plan? Or did it just kind of come as the...
They made the first Iron Man movie, and at the time, Disney did not own Marvel. And Iron Man was actually Marvel Studios' first movie. They had made other Marvel movies, but they weren't in the same universe. They were just all separate things. Then they made Iron Man. And at the end of Iron Man, Samuel L. Jackson, as Nick Fury, comes out and says something about the Avengers Initiative. He's like, I'm looking to start the Avengers Initiative. So yes, it has always been the plan to make it a larger universe and lead up to the Avengers. Then Disney purchased Marvel after Iron Man was made, and it was made even easier for them to do that. They wanted to stick on the same track. Marvel Studios remained an entity, and then they made Iron Man 2, and then they made The Incredible Hulk, which had, at the very end, Tony Stark in it. Mm-hmm. So the first time they made a movie that wasn't Iron Man was in it. So tied right there. Then they made Captain America, had Iron Man's father, Howard Stark. And then they made Thor, featuring S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who had been in Iron Man, and references to the universe. And then they made Avengers. Yeah, Hawkeye was in Thor. That's right. And then they made the Avengers, was all together. That was the original plan, to get the Avengers, and then it all grew from there.
From the original Iron Man, was Endgame always the goal, or did that just kind of develop?
It kind of developed from, I'd say, by the time they made Avengers, it was the goal.
Okay.
Yeah, because at the end of Avengers, Thanos shows up and smiles, and it's like this menacing, it's the end credit scene, and Thanos smiles. So yes, Thanos was always the end game. From the first Avengers, Thanos was the end game. They knew they were going to make 4 Avengers movies, and on the 4th one would be... I'm sure they didn't have the whole story planned out yet, but they knew what the end game was, which is called Avengers Endgame. They did, yes. So this has been... And it's all because of this man, Kevin Feige, who produced every single movie, and Kevin Feige was just made creative chief over all of Marvel, not just the movies, over the comic books, over the TV, over everything.
Has he responded to Martin Scorsese's comments?
I have not seen a response, but a couple actors have. I know Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, a lot have. When you look it up, that's all you get is a response.
I remember Robert Downey Jr., who plays Tony Stark, Iron Man, he said it's just his opinion. Pretty much what I've seen is everyone just being like, it's just his opinion. They're not really going to get a fight because, he's also one of the most respectable directors of all time, so you have to give him some slack and take what he says with no grains of salt, I'd say, and I don't know how else to say that, no grains of salt, but
aplomb.
What?
Take what he says with aplomb.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but I hear other people say it, so
Okay.
I assume that's what that
Ooh,
means.
college boy throwing in the
Whoa,
vocabulary.
whoa, man. Slow down.
Well, do you have comments? Other comments, Dean?
Well, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the bud there. So, all I can say is that personally, I see both sides of the equation, you know? Like, I see that each film isn't a super personal, crafted, low-stakes story, so I could see how people get overwhelmed with it. I also see the big gray villain thing.
Yeah, the big gray villain, yeah.
But I also see that not only is the MCU super profitable because of its marketing plans and stuff,
Yeah.
it is objectively one of the greatest film experiences of all time because they took the idea of mastering a film and they stretched it over a bunch of films so that
it's
you
one
could have
big movie.
So that you could have so many things happen. It's a lot. I've noticed a lot of films that are created for like retelling a story from a book, for example.
Yeah, an adaptation.
Yeah, an adaptation from like a book series. A lot of the time, they will be too rushed because it's just one movie. It's just 2 to 3 hours of film,
Right.
so you're not going to have everything that you want to in that film. So what the MCU was doing was the best possible solution.
Right. And there's definitely a genius behind it, and I don't think anybody can dispute that. I mean, it's the most profitable franchise ever. Endgame alone is the most profitable movie ever. Period. It's made more money than any movie that's ever existed.
So, how many times have you seen it?
Endgame? I've seen Endgame 3 times.
Okay, so what are the tie-ins that really got you the most? Like when I talked to you after I had seen it and I watched it and I understood what I saw, but I didn't react to it.
Right.
So where did the emotion?
And it was
really...
actually interesting when you called me and we talked about it, and you're like, well, why were y'all crying? And I'm like, well, because in this movie, and you just didn't get the same thing. So that explains like Martin's point of like, it's not Endgame itself. You could argue it doesn't really work because it isn't this one cinema experience. The tie-ins that got me the most, though, I mean, Endgame did a great job of tying back to everything they did. Captain America, what really hit me was Captain America getting to be with Peggy Carter.
Getting his dance.
At the end, because in the first Avenger, the first Captain America movie, the first Avenger, not the first Avengers film, but the first Avenger, Captain America, he is in love with Peggy Carter, and there's great chemistry there. I got to meet Haley Atwell, which was the greatest experience of my life, and I had that picture hanging up in my room I took with her. And they have great chemistry, and it's a really incredible ending to a movie. And this is why I disagree with Martin, because you have this movie where you at the end, when Captain America is going to crash the plane into the ice to save the world, he's talking with Peggy, and he's talking about going on a date, and like they make a date finally, and then in the middle of a sentence he cuts off. He's in the ice. He wakes up 50 or so years later, now in the real world, and this is so brilliant. I don't know how you look at this and say it's not cinema. He's running around, he's figuring out what's happening, and Nick Fury comes up to him, calms him down, what's going on. He goes, "Are you okay?" And Cap just looks around and goes, "Yeah, it's just I had a date." Cut to black.
I had a date.
I had a date.
So
Cut to
you
black.
knew when they made that scene after you saw Endgame, they were leading up to that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Also, spoilers, I guess. Not at this point, really, but spoilers, I guess. It's important because Captain America found Peggy 50 years later. He spent time with her.
Oh yeah.
He buried her.
That's right.
And he spent years afterwards watching everyone else suffer sometimes much worse than he did.
Yeah.
It was just like his story is brilliant, and you couldn't have possibly done it in the span of one film.
One movie. It took every movie he was in.
That is so important to seeing why the MCU is one of the greatest accomplishments like in cinema history, because they have taken something that could not be done and did it.
And they did it, yeah. But people argued, like, well, why aren't the X-Men, blah, 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 in the same universe? Like, well,
film rights.
Film rights, yes, but also, like, okay, Fox for a time, Fox owned both the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. And the question's like, why don't you cross them over? And it's like, well, it's not really... Because we don't want to make money, apparently.
They don't know how to make movies.
They don't know how to make movies, yeah. But then Marvel was like, whatever they want to do tomorrow, start today. And they just did it. They're like, why aren't we doing it? We have all these characters. There's this the great story. Marvel actually was going bankrupt in the early 2000s, late 90s. And that's why they sold off all the movie rights, like Spider-Man. That's why Fox owned the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and Daredevil, and Sony owns and still owns Spider-Man to make movies with them.
Just like all of Spider-Man.
Yeah, they do, actually. Yeah, they still do. For the film rights, at least, is because they were going bankrupt and needed to sell it. And this guy came in, and he wasn't a comic book guy. He was just this studio guy. Like his job was to come in and fix companies, and he became the president. They made him president, and he was like, you guys have some of the most recognizable characters in fiction. You should be making millions of dollars alone off of Spider-Man.
So who is this person?
I can't remember his name.
Because I was about to ask, whose vision was it that finally moved them out of where they were to where they are now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't remember his name, sadly. I'm sorry. I know that Joe Quesada came in later, and it was a big part of that. And Kevin Feige had always been involved in the movies, but this one guy, he came in and he was like, what are you doing, dude? And he hired some lawyers to figure crap out, and they did it. And then the Spider-Man movie got made. And it got Marvel out of bankruptcy, and it moved them in this track, and eventually it led them to making Marvel Studios and making Iron Man. And the reason they made Iron Man, because people don't realize this, before the movie Iron Man was made in 2008, in the comic books, Iron Man was like a C-list character. Mm-hmm. He was not a big deal at all, which is why it was a joke. You're making an Iron Man movie?
That's what I thought, honestly.
Yeah,
that's
exactly,
what I thought.
Yeah, because it's like, what? But they didn't have the rights to Spider-Man or the X-Men or the Fantastic Four or anyone else that would make them money. They had already made a Hulk movie and it didn't do very well. And so it was like, well, guess we'll make Iron Man. But then it was a huge success.
And why was it?
What?
Why was it a success?
A huge success? Because it was a good freaking movie. That's why. I mean,
great storytelling, well established plot points. Also, they made Iron Man really cool, which was kind of a surprise in and of itself.
So who wrote the movie?
Jon Favreau wrote, and I believe he wrote it. I know for a fact he directed it. I'm pretty sure he wrote it with somebody else. Jon Favreau and Kevin Feige really got that off the ground, and they got Robert Downey Jr., who Marvel did not want to hire, because at the time, I mean, his career was in the toilet.
I was going to say, that was the tie-in I was looking for, because I saw interviews with him, and and
that's a big reason it was successful, because he was so great.
He is a phenomenal actor, and I've loved him since he first started acting. He's about my age. So watching him come back and to have the success he's had...
It's the story of Tony Stark.
Yes.
Of this, you get down to your lowest level and you come back and... Mm-hmm. Sorry, I took a sip. You become the hero to the world, you know?
Literally.
Yes, that's what... Yes, because of Robert Downey Jr., because of Jon Favreau, who people don't realize Jon Favreau was a producer on pretty much all the Marvel movies after Iron Man. I love Jon Favreau. He's my favorite director, period. He directed my favorite movie of all time, Chef. So I love Jon Favreau. And they just made a movie. And Jeff Bridges, who plays the villain in Iron Man, he talks about how when he was making it, Jon Favreau said to him, we're just making a $200,000 student film. So just do whatever you want. Just have fun. And then they did. And they just ended up making an awesome freaking movie. And it worked. And they knew the movie was good. So that's why they put in Nick Fury at the end. Like, let's do more with this. We know we can. And people loved the movie. And it made tons of money. And like people wanted more. And they knew where to go with it. But it took a man like Kevin Feige. One man, one direction. I think that's why DC has failed so horribly with their cinematic universe. One man, one direction to come in and say, this is what we're going to do.
Now, what is his role again? I thought you said he was a director.
Kevin Feige, he's the producer.
Okay,
he's the executive producer on every Marvel movie. And just now, he was made chief creative executive over Marvel.
Okay. Yeah. So it was John, what's his last name?
Jon Favreau.
Now, has he directed all of the ones?
He directed Iron Man and he directed Iron Man 2.
But then they got different directors.
Yeah, and then they got different directors, and he was a producer on all the future Iron Man, on the future movies. After Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn came on, and I think James Gunn who directed Guardians of the Galaxy, he became a producer on all the movies to keep things in a direction. But really, it's all under Kevin Feige, who told him this is what we're doing, and really impressive stuff that came from that. And you know what's really cool when I think about it? I always say, everybody, it's a very popular quote that necessity drives creativity. Mm-hmm. And because they didn't have Spider-Man, they didn't have the X-Men, they had to look at their list of characters and go, what are we going to do? I guess we'll do Iron Man. If Marvel had the rights to Spider-Man movies, they would have never made an Iron Man movie because they would have made a Spider-Man movie.
And where would Robert Downey Jr. be?
Where would Robert Downey Jr. be? Where would any of this be?
Right.
I would love to take a peek into that alternate universe and see those movies, see who would be playing Spider-Man right now. And
create that storyline.
I would not want to look into that alternate
You like the way they work
I like the way it is now. Let's be done.
The year is 2049. Yeah. Iron Man has been effectively written out of Marvel.
Nothing. Iron Man is obscure as the Machine Man. You ever heard of the Machine Man?
No.
Exactly. that's what Iron Man's become.
The Avengers are now called Cuddle Force.
Cuddle Force 5.
And they are led by Red Hulk.
Red Hulk? I don't look like... Which one? Red Hulk, I guess.
What year was the Iron Man movie?
2008.
Okay.
2008, yeah.
Right.
So, and then Endgame came out 2019. So 11 years built up to it.
That's crazy.
2008 was the year of my go-kart accident.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Would you like to discuss that on the podcast?
Sure. Another cool
fun facts about Dean.
Yeah. Another cool factoid about me. I chopped my arm off.
And it almost died. I mean, he almost lost his arm from about halfway between his elbow and his wrist.
Like literally just off, basically. Yeah. Hung on by one little patch of skin. Mm-hmm. Not even meat. Skin.
Yes.
Yeah, it has a huge scar. And
I just put it back on, I guess.
Well, somehow he told me the story. It got gangrene and everything, but he was like, "Nah, I'm gonna keep my arm."
You just stood up, dusted it off, and went back to work.
Yeah, it was only like 2 months in the hospital, and boom, I was cleared to go home. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had a massive metal bar sticking out of my arm and all that stuff, but I really shouldn't have kept my arm.
But you decided to.
Yeah.
He decided he was going to keep his arm, and I believe very firmly that's why he did.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it was optimism that helped me keep my arm.
That's what I'm saying.
Because I'd never thought about what if I don't have an arm. I mean, it was in the back of my head, but for the most part, I was just like, boy, oh boy, can't wait to heal.
Yeah, can't wait to have my arm. I'm going to play so many video games, my 2 hands, when I get home.
Yeah.
Dude, look, it was about 3 weeks into my arm being chopped in half. Mother had brought in my DS with a Pokemon game, and I beat it on that hospital bed with both of my arms.
With both?
Both.
Oh, yeah, because they put it back together, so you're able to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
incredible.
Not really because I still had both arms. It was completely out of commission.
Yeah.
The thing is, I could twitch my fingers because my nerve system was through here. So
yeah.
I didn't chop my nerve system completely in half, so I could still twitch my fingers around.
Nice.
It looked very disturbing, but I was able to do it.
Now, would you, in a way, argue that maybe if you did get your arm chopped off, you had no arm there, you had one arm, no right arm, that you would have a bit of a personality? Maybe you could play. Maybe you could, scar. I mean, like, scar is a thing, right? You have a scar, and people say like, "Oh, it gives you personality." Imagine having no arm.
Well, it's actually no forearm and hand because he would have his arm.
Yeah, you would have the arm there. Yeah. So you
could be even more famous.
Yeah, you'd be.
Yeah, and then you'd be
man.
like a big. Then you could be Iron Man in the reboot.
Well,
missed opportunity.
Look, I see your point of view.
I can chop it off for you if you want.
Personally, I think that would actually limit my roles more.
Really?
Yeah, being an amputee.
I know.
Probably.
I know. You know what's really cool though? Just random side note is I love when amputees actually get roles and you see amputees in movies and it's like, oh no, he's an actual amputee, and that's not always the case. But like, okay, in The Walking Dead, they have a lot of walkers who don't have legs. And many times it's played by an amputee. Because that way they don't have to put CGI sleeves on their legs. It's just like, no, you got no legs, just start crawling around and we'll make you look like a walker. So that's really cool.
That is pretty cool.
Anyway, I
I
had a thought that, and I feel like I've talked a lot, but I'm very passionate about comic books. I also see where Martin Scorsese is coming from because I have had a big problem recently with the Marvel movies. I did not like Spider-Man: Far From Home.
What?
And the reason, and I'm starting to feel that I'm getting the fatigue of this isn't a movie. I want to see a movie. They all they're very formulaic movies, and I think they work and they're amazing, and I love the movies, and most of them are like, there are a couple of them that are masterpieces on their own. Infinity War, for example. I don't think you saw Infinity War.
I
You saw Infinity
After
War?
Endgame, I watched it here.
That movie alone, I think, works very, very well as a masterpiece by itself because I think it's a great movie. But there's a lot where I'm like, this is very formulaic. I don't think Endgame or Infinity War followed the formula. But Spider-Man: Far From Home definitely does. It's very formulaic. It has to do this and this and this. It doesn't really push any boundaries in many ways. There is one amazing scene, the Mysterio illusion scene in Far From Home. But a lot of the movies, I am kind of fatigued of because I'm like, what is this movie doing that is different or cool or interesting or special? Or what are you conveying these human emotions like other movies do? Endgame sure did, but I didn't get anything from Far From Home.
Oh, Dean apparently did. So
You
why
did, yeah.
Why did you like it?
Because it may not have been something grandiose and out there, but as a self-contained story, I think it did extremely well. Because it was very unformulaic, in my opinion, when it comes to the MCU, at least. Because it was more of just a rom-com, like, trip to Europe film.
Yeah.
Featuring Spider-Man, which I really appreciate because I love Tom Holland's performance as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Personally, I think he's the best Spider-Man / Peter Parker that we've ever had.
Well, you're wrong, but
no, I'm really not.
Continue.
I just loved how it perfectly conveyed Spider-Man's struggle to try to live a normal life but also be a superhero. Because that's always been a big part of his character. This time, though, it's in Europe, which is very unique.
Yeah, I see.
He's
your
never
point
gone to
entirely.
Europe before.
That's very cool. At least not in the movies. Never been there, and that's really, really cool. And I see your point there. But I think where it fails is that I'm a little bit biased because I love the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies with all my heart. I am 100% sick of Iron Boy Jr. Spider-Man. It's like, how does he live a normal life and also be Spider-Man? But another big part of the movie is, how does he live a normal life getting over the death of Tony Stark, somebody he knew for 2 movies? Oh no! And he won't shut up about Tony Stark. And it's all hinging so heavily on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's very cool to have it tied in. Tie-ins are what make Marvel work, all of it being connected. But come on, man, Spider-Man can exist without Tony Stark. So far, there's been 2 Spider-Man movies in the MCU. Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home. In both of them, the villains are villains because they were screwed over by Tony Stark. Mm-hmm. In both of them. And in both of them, in Homecoming, it's about how do you get out of Tony Stark's shadow. And Far From Home is, how do you get out of Tony Stark's shadow? While also now apparently having control over rocket satellites that Tony Stark made because he left it to you for some reason. Not his wife or his actual daughter or, I don't know, his best friend who is also an Iron Man. And it just frustrates me so much because it's so tied in. Because I'm like, can I just watch a Spider-Man movie, please? Can I watch a movie where he just fights a villain that he's actually personally connected to in a way? Because that was the beauty of the Raimi films, I think. The Green Goblin works because that's his best friend's dad. That's why that works. And because the Green Goblin killed his girlfriend, well, technically Spider-Man killed his girlfriend because Green Goblin threw her off a bridge, but then he caught her with the web and it snapped her neck. Point is, I see Martin Scorsese's point of like, this is a big theme park event, but where's the Spider-Man movie, man? Where's the...
Dean, I know he's waiting to say something,
yeah,
so
yeah.
What do you want to say?
I understand what you're coming from, but I personally don't have a problem with Spider-Man's character being, like, I could see how you feel that he seems like an offshoot of Iron Man's
Yeah.
like success and importance in the story. But at the same time, you just didn't shut up about Iron Man for a solid 30 minutes. So, it's a little bit of hypocrisy right there.
I see your point.
Like, Iron Man, of course, is a massive part of the MCU.
Yeah.
Try to imagine a movie, because the thing is, you would be correct in being angry that Spider-Man doesn't have his own films, but at that point, like Marvel got the rights to use Spider-Man again in the middle of their progression. So realistically, it would have been very, very awkward for them to not have Spider-Man so tied in.
Yeah.
And I see how you could feel that it's unrealistic for him to have such a connection to Tony Stark so soon, but at the same time, he did kind of, lose Uncle Ben, and his parents are already dead,
Then why hasn't he talked about Uncle Ben yet?
Because, the reason that they leave that out is because everybody's tired of Spider-Man's origin story.
I'm not. I love the character.
I mean, that's fair.
I think they did a good job not showing Spider-Man's origin story again in this. They shouldn't have. But say his name, Uncle Ben. Why is he... I hate that he's so like... Okay, I hate this. Actually, no. That makes sense. But I hate that he's like, Tony died. How am I going to live without him? Tony died. How am I going to live without him? Tony died. How am I going to live without him? I don't know. How'd you live without your Uncle Ben? Oh, wait. We didn't explore that with you.
I mean, to be fair, Tony was Spider-Man's first, like, dad in that way. And also... you could see Peter Parker's inner struggle with having to deal with, he let down his mentor now, and his mentor died for him. After finally having somebody who everybody was convinced was invincible and was the greatest guy on the planet.
Invincible Iron Man is the name of his
He gave his life for everybody, Yeah,
it's heartbreaking.
And
I cried.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Cried
especially
a lot.
If you cried that much, you didn't even meet him. Spider-Man, basically made him his new dad and got really attached to him. And as soon as Spider-Man comes back from the dead, not even understanding, it's all gone. So I understand completely why Spider-Man would be so upset. And another thing, you said that all of Spider-Man's villains so far in the MCU have been caused by Tony. That's a fact against what you said rather than what for you're arguing, because that means that in a way, Tony hurts as much as he helps, and Spider-Man, being his protege, has to deal with the mess. Now that Iron Man is gone / wasn't really paying attention because he was busy doing the big stuff, Spider-Man was then the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which left him with dealing with what Tony has done. So I think that means that, personally, Spider-Man, I believe, Tony knew that Spider-Man was going to be the person to deal with all of his leftovers and all of his problems, which is why he knew that he would be a great successor, because Spider-Man is focusing on the things that Tony can't look at now, especially since he's dead now.
Oh my God, in the same way that oftentimes as a son you look at your father's mistakes and you're like, I don't do that, I can take that and be you. God dang it, Dean.
Did it just blow your mind, bro? Spider-Man.
You just completely swayed me.
Spider-Man isn't Iron Man Jr. He's better. He's learning how to... Well, Homecoming was kind of how do I get out of Iron Man's shadow, but Iron Man, the entire movie was saying, kid, don't be like me. That's not the goal. And in Far From Home, that's what Spider-Man realized. Being Iron Man isn't going to save everyone. Being Spider-Man is going to stop Mysterio.
All right, so you witnessed it here first. David's opinion has been.
I will say this.
Altered.
I'll say this. You just made me like Far From Home a lot more than when I did.
Go rewatch it, baby. You're going to love it now.
I probably will. Also, I saw it while I was in Florida at this crappy cinema.
Oh yeah,
that was gross. So that probably ruined my experience a little bit. I still have my issues with it. You helped me a lot just now. I still have my issues with it. I still don't like the fact that Spider-Man has all this technology on it. I kind of just wanted to chill out. Yeah. And I do hate I hate the theme of, are you going to be the next Iron Man now? But now I guess you made a good point of, it's not about who's going to be the next Iron Man. It's going to be about, he had to learn to just be Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. Plus,
good point.
To be fair, he's also smart enough to or in Far From Home, he reconfigured the armor Iron Man made for him to be for him instead. So it's not that he's dumb and he can't be. It's just that by being himself, he's better.
Yeah, that he can learn. He can be. He's not Tony Stark. He's not gonna be Tony Stark. He needs to learn to be Peter Parker, Spider-Man.
By being himself, he'll be just as good.
There's still a lot. Okay, defend the bus scene with the drones and the rockets. Defend that.
That was just for fun, essentially.
Yeah, it sucked.
It didn't suck. It was hilarious.
I was cringing.
How do you
so hard
accidentally call in an orbital strike on your bus to stop this one ass guy? Dang it! Darn it!
Ass guy. It's fine, Dean.
We're
It's
fine.
fine.
We're
It's
good.
fine.
You are
It's
okay.
fine.
Oh,
You made it in an hour.
So far.
That's hilarious.
So
This
far.
one ass
You
guy.
you guys got me mid rant.
That's actually, you know what? I see what your point you're going. It's like, of course, Peter Parker would be the guy to accidentally call a drone strike.
It's just so funny.
To give Donna some context to what's happening here. Sorry you haven't been able to. I hope you've enjoyed, just like the
sure.
listeners.
Oh, yes.
But this guy, this bully has a picture he's going to blackmail Spider-Man with, basically. So Spider-Man, trying to use Tony's technology, should just go on the phone and delete the picture. And he accidentally calls a drone strike on the bully, but the bully is in the same bus that him and all of his friends are in.
So he's trying to stop the drone strike from happening, but he can't turn it off. So
While
he has
also not revealing that he's Spider-Man. So he's like, he can't show everybody.
It's a hilarious
I still
scene.
hate, you know what, the concept is good. I still don't like the scene. I don't like the Edith glasses and all that stuff. But you convinced me again. Describing it that way, I'm like, yeah, that would be Peter Parker's life.
I just love how it's so funny too how Nick Fury's pulling all the strings in the background to extend the field trip so that they can deal with the world-ending scenario, and his class is just completely going with it like, oh, hey, cool, check this out. The government just gave us a huge extension on our vacation, kids. And everybody's like, yeah, awesome. Why is this happening?
Yeah,
Whatever.
that's a good point. You know what? I just needed to lighten up. It's not that bad of a movie. But still, it's still not... I could watch that movie and be like, that's not a film. I could see myself saying, that's not a film. But if I watch movies like Joker, even though it's a comic book movie, that movie is a film.
It doesn't feel like a comic book movie, which
Not
is a
at
good
all.
job. Which is a good job on
Yeah.
them.
But to be fair, I mean, like, I think Todd Phillips just wanted to make a movie about what Joker is about and was like, I'll use Joker to do it. Like, it's like slapping a coat of paint on it.
Personally, that's totally not Joker. That's like a completely different villain with the Joker.
Nothing to do with the Joker.
Joker's just like, ha ha, Batman, I'm gonna kill people,
Yeah.
and you can't kill me back. But this guy,
Yeah.
society is corrupt.
Society's
I've been wrong.
I've been wrong. Yeah, Joker has nothing to do with Batman.
They took the meme and made it a serious
They
movie.
did. It's Donna's giving me the eyes. Donna, what do you think about Spider-Man: Far From Home, Donna?
I have not seen that movie.
Really?
But
Okay.
I do have a question though, and I don't know how much longer we really.
What do you
need
think
to
about
talk
Thor: The Dark World?
Do you think that they will bring Iron Man back because they
Oh,
have all
good
these
question.
ways of manipulating time and you know what I'm saying?
I don't
Well-
think they're going to do it like for that universe, but they're opening up multiverse.
They are yeah.
Kind
I
of.
could just it has been confirmed that I don't think it's been confirmed, but Tony Stark is probably going to be in the Black Widow movie, but the Black Widow movie takes place before Endgame, so
Canonically, I don't think he's gonna.
no. And you know, right now in the comic books, he's actually like a hologram. Like he downloaded his brain into a hologram, which is definitely something that Tony Stark would do.
Yeah.
So I could see.
Okay, so he can still be in movies.
I don't know because didn't he come back from that already?
He already did, but I
Okay.
think he did. But at some point, like, he could be in movies. I don't. Okay, if Robert Downey Jr. went to Marvel, and was like, I want to do another one, so put me in it. Marvel would be like, okay, please. I think it was definitely, and same with Chris Evans no longer being Captain America. I think that was their decision, personally. I think what I believe is that they came to them and were like, so this is what we're gonna do. Do you guys want out or in? Because if you want out, this is the perfect opportunity to write you out. You don't have to sign another contract. You fulfilled your contracts. But if they would have said we want in, they would have left it open. And if they come back like we want in, they'll be like, okay, Hulk opened a portal to the other world, and now they're here. Okay, they're here now.
Whoops.
They're here now. Okay, but also, I kind of don't want them to. I like the idea that the Infinity Saga, that's what the first 3 phases of Marvel have been called. The Infinity Saga is this wrapped, it's cinema. It's this one thing. Mm-hmm. There you go, Martin. It's one big thing, and you can buy it in a DVD. It's a 20-hour long movie.
There's your movie, Martin.
There's your movie, Martin. That's like a 40-hour long movie. Jeez. I don't think they'll ever be. I don't think Robert Downey Jr. ever want to do it again, unless it's like really far in the future and it's like this like yeah, I'll come back. That'll be fun. Just like how, for example, right now, in the era in like the DC TV verse, they're doing this crossover, and Tom Welling, who played Superman on Smallville, who hasn't played Superman since 2011, is coming back to play Superman again. Because it's like, it's just this event. It's just this fun thing they're doing. Like, hey, Tom, want to come be Superman? He's like, sure. And they brought him back, because why not? And I could see that happening, sort of like an Avengers movie 20 years from now. It's like, hey, Robert Downey, want to come just be like, hey, what's up, guys? I could see that happening. Definitely. But I kind of hope they don't. And they have so many more things to do. And the next phase actually looks very exciting. I'm a little like, I like to make fun of it. Like, oh, you're doing the Eternals? That's your next big thing? Have you ever heard of the Eternals? No. Have you heard of the Avengers? Yes. Yeah. You're doing the Eternals. That's your next big franchise? The Eternals?
Well, I mean, they had luck with Iron Man that y'all laughed at when they brought out. So.
Yeah,
and
but
Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's a good point.
Ant-Man.
And I've heard all of those. I've heard all of those arguments.
But still, the
none
Eternals?
of them. Not a single person. Exactly. Still the Eternals. Like, not a single one of those characters has ever been as low on the totem pole as the Eternals.
They're basically like god people.
Yeah.
I think they live in a mountain.
They live in this mountain. They're like gods, basically.
Yeah.
Jack Kirby Stan Lee creation, I'm pretty sure. There's one good Eternal story. One.
The one where they died?
The one... Are you talking about the Inhumans? I think that's the Inhumans who died.
No, the Inhumans are butchered.
Yeah,
Wait, this wasn't like...
We've got to find the end. We're at 107 almost.
There is no end, Donna. Just like there's Endgame, but now there's more Marvel movies coming.
So y'all can continue your discussion. I feel like we need...
Yeah.
You fine.
So... This was a fun...
yes.
I really enjoyed just talking about Marvel. I could talk about Marvel movies
I know.
all day. You know me. I'm happy Dean was here,
Yes.
who a student at LSU was able to... Who is going into this theater world and did exactly what he's living proof that what we're preaching to you works. Mm-hmm. And I knew he'd have fun being on here for the discussion. And I mean, he swayed my opinions about Spider-Man Far From Home, truly. So I knew he'd be great for this discussion when Donna said we should talk about Martin Scorsese's opinions. And I'm sorry you didn't have too much to say, but I think you contributed heavily to the conversation because you brought out points that I just didn't think of.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
It was still
David.
a great show.
You help us talk about things.
Did I sound rude?
No.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sound rude if I did.
Wow, dude.
I'm just playing with you. We're good. We're good.
So thank you guys so much for listening. Please leave a comment. Tell us what you think about this whole thing. Is Marvel cinema? And don't forget to go to our website, davidanddonnacreative.com. Also, check out our Twitter and Instagram, stay_creativeDD. That's where you'll find all the updates. Every time we upload a new podcast, I make a post on the Instagram. And our website is where you can find everything David and Donna, articles, blogs, and also 25 tips to stay creative in your everyday life. Click the links in the description. Thank you guys so much for listening. Dean's making motions. I'm like, what's going on, Dean?
Say?
If you guys have any questions about our Lord and Savior Zaplapo, just hit them up,
Yeah, where can we find you, Dean?
I have 2 emails. Would you like my LSU email or my regular email?
Which one would you check? If somebody's like,
listen,
I want to message that guy and make him an actor in my movie, which one?
Probably the LSU, and you live with LSU email. That's where you do all your...
Yeah.
All right, I'll type that out in the description.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, I'll type that out in the description for you guys to check out. Thank you guys so much for listening. We love our viewers. We love doing this podcast, and we're happy we get to do it. Dean, thank you for coming. Guys, this has been Creative Conversations with David and Donna. I'm David.
I'm Donna.
And I'm Dean.
Stay creative.